Hello class, and welcome to our new and improved Maniac Mansion NES walkthrough, right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Briggins. I'm your instructor, Professor Briggins. In terms of difficulty, Maniac Mansion, very much an adventure game, and as such, if you know what you're doing, it's a breeze. If you don't, it can be a bit trickier. I'm going to average out those two different concepts and give Maniac Mansion on a scale of 1 to 10, a 5 out of 10. Which on the frustration scale equates to throwing your controller across the room, but won't be necessary today. We're going to be showing you how to beat this game with every single character pairing. Doesn't matter who you take into the mansion with you, we've got you covered, and we'll show you how to beat the game with those characters. I'm very much looking forward to a new feature in this one. Blaze is bringing his Mac Venture Best Death list here to Maniac Mansion, and he'll be counting down the top 5 deaths here in Maniac Mansion. That's going to be a lot of fun. Gary's going to cover the various endings here in Maniac Mansion, how to get each one, and Fluff has more fun facts about Maniac Mansion than ever before. This is the most comprehensive walkthrough you'll ever find on this game, but I absolutely love Maniac Mansion. The story of 7 teenagers who break into the mansion of a maniac, and I just got that. To rescue their friend Sandy and foil the plot of an evil mind-controlling meteor from taking over the world. That old chestnut. Here's some tips right off the bat. For a good time, never mind, just call Edna at never mind. Save Sandy before she gets her brains removed. Don't cross the meteor or the meteor is going to be mad. Speaking of which, you might want to stay on Edna's good side, otherwise she'll tie you to her, she'll speak to your mother. If you need to unwind, just enjoy some of the finer art displayed in the... Well, you can always play a quick game of Kill Thrill, Tuna Diver. Hey, at least we get a banging soundtrack in the NES port, but I think Fluff's going to be busy in this one covering all the things Nintendo found to be too violent and... What? They let you nuke a hamster in the microwave? Alright, as we begin a new game, the first order of business is to choose 2 other kids to accompany Dave into the mansion.
It's time to play Getting to Know Your Teenagers. Dave is the boyfriend of Syd.
No, hold up.
What?
We're not doing that this week.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just, we did it 2 classes ago, and it's a little bit hacky.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And incidentally, the whole Getting to Know Your Teenagers title, it's a little problematic. I mean, at best, it sounds like we're giving out parental advice, and at worst, I'm not going to touch that one.
You know, I heard it as soon as I said it.
Yeah, so I'm just going to talk about each kid kind of normally. So, thanks though.
You got it. And remember, I'm available for weddings, bar mitzvahs, game shows.
Dave is a requisite, has to come with us, but each one of these kids outside of Dave has a particular set of skills, kind of Liam Neeson style. In 2 of these characters' cases, I suppose if hamsters had kidnapped Liam Neeson's daughter in that film, but Syd and Razor are the 2 musicians of the group. We can apply their musical talents in the mansion, as we'll cover later. Jeff, he's a surfer dude, lives on the beach. He has the ability to fix a phone. That's kind of his only claim to fame. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And Michael, ace photographer for the college newspaper. His darkroom abilities can come in handy. If you want all of the endings which this game has to offer, then I recommend taking Bernard, the Geek Award winner and Physics Club president, and Wendy, who's waiting for her first big break as a novelist. There are 2 unique endings and ways to beat this game which only apply to those 2 characters, so we're going to take them along with us, but once again we will show you how to beat the game or get to the ending of the game with all of the other characters. So we get some opening context right here. Dave is sure that he saw Dr. Fred take Sandy here, Sandy being his girlfriend, and it's up to us to get her out. I appreciate no matter who you take with you into the mansion, you'll get kind of a different exchange here. Someone's gonna chime in as Dave gives everyone the out, and Bernard very happy to take that out, as we witness the ultimate insult of the Maniac Mansion universe, calling someone a tuna head. This is Sandy we're talking about. I can't imagine Bernard cares too much about Sandy. I feel like Dave is a preppy, popular kid. Sandy's his cheerleader girlfriend. They probably just make fun of Bernard all the time, only keep him around to do their physics homework. But Bernard asking the smart questions here. How are we going to get into the mansion? Already clear that Dave is in over his head, has no idea what he's doing, and just kind of making it up as he goes along. Essentially proving my point that he has no skills. But that's not fair. He has one specific skill, which we'll cover in just a moment as we take a look now at the controls for Maniac Mansion for the NES. B really got the short end of the stick here in Maniac Mansion, just used for ending cutscenes, but A does pretty much everything. We control that cursor with the D-pad, select the different options by hitting A on them. You can also cycle through the top main commands with select of get, use, open, and go to. Press start to bring up that menu and save and load on demand. First thing we're going to do, as we did luck out in moving that doormat aside and finding that key and using that to get in here, we're going to take that first door to enter the kitchen and then get caught by Edna, the matriarch of the house. She will promptly throw you in the dungeon. And having no skills, that's where Dave belongs, because again, he does have one skill. I need to stop ragging on Dave. We're going to get him in position right here, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, but let's switch to Wendy. She's going to be our main character for the most part. I recommend just kind of focusing on one character to pick up most of the items. That way that you're not spreading out all the items between 2 or even 3 characters, so you always know where everything is. So just keep picking up everything that you come across, even though there's a number of red herrings in this game. Lots of items which seem like they would have a purpose, but they do not. The lettuce, the old batteries. The chainsaw is a prime example. There's no gas for the chainsaw, so we can't use it. This was referenced in a number of LucasArts games in the early days as kind of a gag. There's actually the bit of fuel, which is specifically for chainsaws only in another LucasArts game, Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders. Reference to this game's chainsaw, because so many players were wondering, what's with the chainsaw? But grab everything off that shelf. The developer fluid, which was on the top, is meant to break by design. That happens every single time. One of the characters, which we did not take with us, needs to use that. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but right now we're focusing on how to beat this game with the 2 characters we did take in to the mansion with us, in Wendy and Bernard. So essentially the main objective here in Maniac Mansion, yes, is to rescue Sandy, but to get to Sandy we need to get past the guard, which is right outside of the secret lab, which it's guarding. You'll get these cutscenes every now and then. Right now the son of the family, Ed, is going down to the kitchen to get some cheese, but we already took the cheese, so that's not going to happen. But turn on this TV if you're playing with Wendy, Syd, or Razor, and watch this commercial right here. This is Meteor, get it? Marketer. And his company, he's proudly saying his company will publish anything. I guess that's a boast. But as long as we watch this commercial right here, we'll get the address, which we'll need to send away one of a couple different items. Cover that a little bit later, but just make sure you turn on that TV and watch that. We might run into Ed right here, actually. It's kind of cool. It happens in real time. Alright, didn't happen, but could have happened. Grab this bowl of wax fruit. That actually does have a purpose in this game, as does the paint remover. But yes, the goal is to get past that guardian of that secret lab, and essentially all but 2 of the kids have a specific way of getting past that guardian. And then once you're past him, once you're in the lab, that's when there's a number of different endings, some of which any kid can achieve, but there are 2 endings, as I mentioned in opening, which are specific and unique to Bernard and Wendy specifically. Let's hunt around for that desk lamp right there. And a very important item for Wendy, we're going to open up this drawer right here and grab the manuscript. We can read it, and she'll say, someone's memoir, but the writing is terrible. Well, Wendy being an aspiring novelist, maybe she can punch it up a little bit. It's written by a Meteor. How strange. I agree. I agree with that reaction right there. I like her reaction to the real skeleton as well. Ooh, that's scary. So that's the study, the office right there. This is the game room. We don't have any cause to go in there right now. So go up these stairs and we'll run into a green tentacle. He's relatively friendly. He just wants a snack, so let's give him the bowl of wax fruit. And then something to wash it down with a little product placement. Let's give him that can of Pepsi we just got from the fridge. You can give him other things to eat, other things to drink, but that's all that he wants right there, so you don't have to waste your time on the other items. Strictly speaking, we don't need those other items, but just for the sake of efficiency. But upstairs, let's open this first door and grab that dime on the floor. If we go up this ladder, we'll find the green tentacles retreated to its bedroom. We just want to grab the right key over here. You grab the record as well, played in the music room. You can actually record the sound it makes. In the original version, it's labeled as a tentacle mating call. No reference to that in this version, obviously, but we can use that high-pitched frequency to break the chandelier in the upcoming room and grab ourselves a key, which we don't need. Want to note that if you try going to that room with the green tentacle where we gave him the food and you're playing as Bernard, he'll run away. He is, well, he's a coward. We saw that in the opening. So pop open this door, the last one from the right, essentially, or second from the right, I guess, before the end of the hall, and use the Hunk-O-Matic machine right there. That will pay dividends a little bit later. So now open this far right door, and you know who else likes Pepsi besides a green tentacle? A green plant that's, I guess that's safe, I guess that's normal. Normal's a relative term here in the mansion. Also picked up that paint remover, so we can use it on this big splotch right here to create a door. Bernard's going to need to go up there a little bit later, so we'll just create that opening for him. At this point, we want to go down to the dungeon, and the fastest way to get to the dungeon is to be caught by either Ed or Edna. Edna's just one room to the left, actually. I think he'd want that cheese, but can't make friends with him. Not yet, anyway. So he's going to throw us in the dungeon, and we are now going to show off Dave's special skill right here, his special talent. So post yourself up right in front of this door as Wendy, switch to Dave, and push right underneath the second from the left window. And you'll have about 3 seconds to switch to Wendy and walk through that door before it shuts again, but we're here in the dark reactor room. Grab that silver key, which we kind of felt around and found just outside of that door. So now that we've got the silver key, and the yellow key for that matter, with the one that we got from the green tentacles upstairs room, we can head further east through the kitchen, through the dining room, and into that, I guess, kind of large pantry area, where we grabbed all the fruit juices and knocked over that developing solution. We can now use the silver key on the yellow door. Don't try to use the yellow key on the yellow door, it will not work. Sometimes it's just trying to find the right item in your inventory, but still beats spreading out items between a number of different characters. So we're treated to another cutscene here with Fred intimidating the beautiful, I suppose, Sandy, Dave's girlfriend right there. Hooked up to my machine. Getting your pretty brains removed. There you go. The cutscenes happen on a running timer, so after a certain number of minutes you'll get another one. There's probably 6 to 8 built into the game. As Dr. Fred breaks the fourth wall right here. That's what she thinks, looking right at the camera. Wait for it, even walks right up. Like he's performing it on the stage. I'd go see a staged performance of Maniac Mansion. Ironically, Dave's right on the other side of that door. That's the door to the dungeon. We'll get it open before too long. So let's use that glass jar and get some of this water right here. This is special water, radioactive water specifically. Blaze is going to talk about that a little bit later. We'll need to use that on that plant upstairs, but assuming you used the Hunk-O-Matic upstairs like we did, you can open up the garage door. Otherwise, you won't be able to open it. Just something to keep in mind, but use the yellow key on the trunk specifically. Be very careful where you use that yellow key. It's the key to the Edsel. use it in the wrong spot and you will accidentally launch the car into space, which is not what we want right now. We want to grab the tools out of the boot for our British viewers. Shout out to the British members of the Video Games 101 class. So we're going to make a pit stop and open the grate outside first, just moving the bushes. Again, something you can only do after you've used the Hunk-O-Matic. But then we're going to position ourselves outside of the rooms upstairs so we can do a little bit of snooping. And we're going to need Bernard to come upstairs as well. You'll see as we get there, but in the meantime, let's go to Fluff for the first time today for our first Fluff fact about Maniac Mansion.
The concept for Maniac Mansion was conceived back in 1985 by Lucasfilm Games employees at the time, Ron Gilbert and Gary Winnick, who had both been hired the previous year to work as a programmer and artist respectively on the 1984 title Chironic Rift. The two bonded over their similar tastes in humor and love of horror and B-movies and decided to create a game out of the humorous cliches associated with those genres. The pair eventually settled on the concept of a group of teenagers entering a spooky mansion to rescue a girl from a mad scientist being mind-controlled by an evil meteor. They used the stable house at Skywalker Ranch, where Lucasfilm Games was based at the time, as a model for the mansion itself, with many of the rooms in the game being exact reproductions of those from the house, including the library with spiral staircase, and the media room with a grand piano and big screen TV, which in 1985 was probably just 27 inches, let's be honest. Many of the characters were even taken out of real life, as most of them were inspired by family members or friends, like Wendy being based on fellow Lucasfilm employee named Wendy, and Winnick's girlfriend at the time, Ray, providing the inspiration for Razor. I'm wondering how she feels about hamsters and microwaves, by the way. Dave was based on Gilbert himself, presumably in the wake of having his own girlfriend kidnapped by a mad scientist. Other characters like Bernard were simply based on stereotypes, and the characters of the Edison family themselves were shaped from characters from EC Comics, a publisher specializing in horror and science fiction. And yes, the man-eating plant was taken straight out of Little Shop of Horrors. While it seems obvious now, the concept of an adventure game as the genre wasn't chosen until Gilbert went home for the holidays and saw his cousin playing Sierra's 1984 revolutionary graphic adventure game, King's Quest: Quest for the Crown. Maniac Mansion was Lucasfilm Games' first self-published title, and upon release for the Commodore 64 and Apple II in 1987, the game was a big success both commercially and critically, with critics praising the game's storytelling, visuals, and non-linear gameplay. It was so successful, it received a number of ports in the following years to MS-DOS, Amiga, Atari ST, the Famicom, and NES, the latter of which I'll talk about later.
Thank you, Fluff. So a lot happened there while Fluff was sharing his facts. The doorbell rang, and that caused Ed to leave his room. The idea was we wanted Ed to capture Bernard, send him down to the dungeon so we could get Wendy inside Ed's room, get the hamster, the card key, and all the money out of his piggy bank, as we're springing Bernard out of the dungeon now. Good work, Dave, by the way. And we gave Bernard the tools as well. He'll be using those in just a moment. But let's take a look at the Brigsnotes now, because the doorbell reminded we have not looked at those yet. You can see for obvious reasons with number 2, but first pick up everything with the same kit. I mentioned that in the opening, actually. Get the package before Ed does. It's good to have someone posted up outside the front door around that 15 to 20 minute mark. It worked out in this case that we were about to get captured by him anyway. He'll get kind of sidetracked if he's sending someone to the dungeon. He'll forget all about his package. So you want to make sure that you grab that before him, though, and then use the irreplaceable items wisely. Talk about that. We have one coming up here in just a moment, but if you are Syd, Razor, or Wendy, you want to grab the stamps off the side of the package. We'll be using those to send away something to the guy who will publish everything a little bit later. You can also give the package to Ed to befriend him so he won't send you to the dungeon anymore, for what that's worth. I kind of like being sent to the dungeon, not for any weird reasons, but I like it as a sort of teleport from the top to the bottom of the mansion quite quickly. So now we're going to take Bernard over to the east wing of the house here and open this panel in the living room here. he's the only one who can interact with this. Once you open it up and take out the radio tube, everyone else will be like, I'm not smart enough for that. But grab the radio tube. We'll need that to access a unique ending, his unique ending, or unique solution to beating the game, essentially, getting past that tentacle like we mentioned earlier. But coming to the library here, turn on that light. There is a cassette tape in the panel, that far right panel down there. It's a loose panel. Open that up, you can get the cassette tape, but use the tools on the phone. Jeff or Bernard can do this. So now he is in a position to make a phone call on that phone, and we can use that to distract Edna to get up to into her attic. Not a euphemism or anything. We want to get upstairs, or up the ladder to get into her attic, as you'll see in just a moment. But put that faucet we found in the garage on the broken shower right there, and get the number for the phone, for Edna's phone specifically. And once we're ready, we can go ahead and get in position outside of her room. But we've been carrying around this radioactive water from the pool, so let's give this to the plant to act as some miracle grow right here. So once we've given that plant that radioactive water and the Pepsi, we can actually use that to climb up into the observatory. So let's get in front of Edna's room here, that second one from the left, at least the ones that are against that wall. But now let's go back to Bernard and use that phone, dialing that number we saw, which changes each playthrough. There's a small selection of numbers it could be. In this run, it happened to be 5235. So now Edna's going to pick up, and that's going to allow us to, while she's distracted, in a very small window to climb up that ladder and remove a painting so that we can essentially find the combination for the safe that's behind the painting. It's kind of setting things up here. But anyway, while we're letting this play out and continuing on, let's go back to Fluff for another Fluff fact about Maniac Mansion.
So you covered some of this in the opening, Professor, but while some of the adjustments in porting Maniac Mansion to the NES were more practical in nature, like adding music or making sure the various screens would display properly on the NES, most of the changes related to Nintendo's censorship policies of the late 80s and early 90s. So sexually suggestive or explicit content was not permitted in NES games, meaning a Playmate-like calendar and poster were removed from the gym, along with a nude statue in the hall and the words "For a Good Time, Edna 344" on the bathroom wall. In the same vein, they removed Edna's sexually suggestive dialogue of "How silly of me. I should have tied you to my bed" in the original version, which he'd take the male characters down to the dungeon. Nintendo also had a policy prohibiting depictions of excessive or gratuitous violence, which meant that, among a handful of other changes, one of the video game cabinets in the game room's name was changed from Kill Thrill to Tuna Diver. Allegedly, they initially changed it to Muff Diver before realizing that probably wasn't going to fly either, hence finally landing on Tuna before finally submitting the game. Now, despite all the changes made in the name of Nintendo's violence policy, it's kind of amazing that the ability to microwave and explode a hamster was kept in. I have to imagine that Nintendo's censors understandably didn't try this themselves, and thus it slipped through the cracks. After the initial batch of 250,000 cartridges shipped, Nintendo purportedly did catch wind of this ability and subsequently forced publisher Jalico to remove it from future shipments of the game.
There you go, always curious about that. So they just missed it at first, and who could blame them? Would they try to put the hamster, I mean, that was their job, putting the hamster in the microwave, but there you go. So we tied up Edna once again on the phone and climbed down here after we removed and turned on the lights in that attic area. Came over here, used the dimes from Ed's piggy bank to rotate that telescope to the right twice, looked through it, and saw that the combination by way of that super powerful telescope was 1230. Again, another combination which will vary from play to play, so don't expect that to necessarily work in your run. But let's call her one more time and then go up there as Wendy, open that up with the 1230 combination we just got, and get the contents of that safe. And then on the way out, I think I'll just let her capture me and throw me in the dungeon, just so we can get down there and move on with the game a little faster. Love the soundtrack for this game though, Fluff. I understand you have some facts about the music of the NES, or how it operated essentially. What can you tell us?
Okay, so basically the Nintendo Entertainment System was limited to the ability to play 5 channels of audio played in mono for both the music and sound effects. Each of these channels had a specific type of tone which they could play, and each tone generally had a specific purpose in the context of a theme. 2 of these generate square waves, which are typically used to carry the main melodies which we think of. The 3rd channel produces triangle waves, which are commonly playing the lower notes of a theme, as the bass or occasionally the drums. A 4th channel creates a kind of white noise, which can be chopped and pitched up or down to create a percussive effect for most themes. So in other words, very lo-fi drums and beats. And the final channel can play low-quality digital samples. So anytime you hear a specific sound effect, like a very crude attempt at speech, that's what you're hearing. To further create a sense of dynamics, all of these channels can be set to 16 different volume levels.
Thank you, Fluff. Yeah, they were working it in this particular game, have to say. Love the soundtrack for this one. Did a ranking video of the best themes on the NES. On our sister channel, Let's Play with Brigands, I gave the nod to Maniac Mansion as the 2nd best soundtrack on the system, so... Want to mention, if you record that record we got from the Tentacles room in the music room with the cassette tape, you can play it in the stereo system behind that panel right there, and that'll break the chandelier. We can grab the key for the dungeon, but we got Dave, so... You can also have someone pull that right head to open that door to get into the reactor room. Right now we need to do a quick swap, so let's give those stamps we pulled off the package to Wendy here. I think you can try to give, speaking of the music, your CD player to another character and they will just emphatically, ain't gonna happen. Alright, so we're gonna head down here as Bernard. We're gonna empty the pool and send Wendy in. Note that little puddle right there coming out of that pipe. That is the developing solution that we broke earlier. It drained down in there. So to beat the game as Michael, you want to take the sponge and soak that up, use it on that puddle, and then you want to, after you've given the package to Ed, you go outside and you will find some undeveloped film. Pick that up and take that to the dark room. Of course, the mansion has a dark room, and only Michael can develop that using the prints in the development tray along with the fluid as well. And just give those to Ed, and you've made a friend for getting past that purple tentacle later on in the game. There he is right there. So back in our reality here with Bernard and Wendy, we turned on the valve to empty the pool. And of course, Dr. Fred was using the swimming pool to cool his nuclear reactor, just trying to cut costs anywhere he can. So he will send the purple tentacle to go investigate the reactor room itself, but they won't put 2 and 2 together that the pool's empty or figure out how to refill the pool, better said, and the house will explode if you don't deal with that quickly enough. But while the pool's empty, we're going to send Wendy down there to grab the glowing key, which can be used to access the secret lab here, as well as the radio, which has some batteries we can put in the flashlight so Bernard can do some work we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, you have plenty of time to get in and out of the pool before you need to refill it, before the house explodes. But while we're doing this, let's bring in Fluff to talk about the music now of Maniac Mansion, how it came together for this version.
As I mentioned earlier, the NES version was the first instance of this game to feature a soundtrack. While you could argue that omitting music adds to the creepy vibe of the atmosphere of the original releases of Maniac Mansion on computer systems of the day, which creators Gilbert and Winnick were going for, NES games almost always feature accompanying music for most parts of their games. As such, publisher for the NES console port of Maniac Mansion, Jalico, commissioned Real-Time Associates, who brought in George the Fat Man Sanger and his band, along with David Hayes, to create the soundtrack. Each track was meant to reflect the personality and style of each character, including Jeff's surf theme, Syd and Razor's punk themes, and Bernard's stereotypically geeky theme. Another fun fact, Dave's theme was a pastiche of Thin Lizzy's The Boys Are Back in Town. Real-Time Associates founder and president David Warhol then translated their recordings into chiptunes. And you can find some of Sanger's original recordings online if you're interested.
Yeah, I recommend checking those out. I just listened to the Surf Rock Jeff's theme, the full band version. And you can see it's like a longer sprawling piece, and they took out little bits and pieces, individual sections to make his chiptune version of his theme here in Maniac Mansion. So now it's time to punch up that manuscript that we got earlier up there in that top right room on the typewriter. We also want to use the envelope on the typewriter to enter the publisher's mailing address. We're going to do it right now, and then I guess get sent back down to the dungeon. And we'll need to use the stamps with the envelope which we recovered from Edna's safe in that attic above her room. Something to mention about the envelope. In other versions of the game, you have to kind of moisten up the envelope first using the microwave and your jar of filled water, which we're going to do anyway, but want to point out that in the NES version, you can just tear open the envelope. There's no penalty for doing that in the NES version, but now, after having played many other versions of this game over the years, I discovered that they're far less lenient in those other versions. You could basically soft lock yourself, depending on the characters you have with you, if you just rip open that envelope because it becomes unusable. So, gotta use the microwave with some warm water to, I guess, create a little humidity, a little moisture. And you'd think after the 10th time that she puts us in the dungeon, she might ask herself, what the heck is going on here? Like, how are you kids getting out of here? Time and time again, but bless that Edna for not asking questions. While we're down here, let's go ahead and use the glowing key, which we got from the bottom of the pool. It works in both padlocks. And then, little tip right here, after we open this outer door, there's an inner door which requires a combination. If you get to this door before a certain cutscene happens later in the game, the combination is 0000. The combination will only change to a specific different number if you get to the point where Dr. Fred plays the Meteor mess video game in the game room, and then his high score becomes the new combination for that door. So, being that we got to that door early enough in the game, we don't have to worry about that, just use the 4 zeros and we are good to go. So let's fill up our jar now with some ordinary tap water here, much safer than radioactive water, as Blaze is going to mention a little bit later, not to give anything away or not to give too much away. Looking forward to the top 5 death list that he's put together, which we'll share in just a bit. But once that glass jar is filled up with tap water, put it in the microwave and then drop that envelope in right next to it. Turn on the microwave. Don't worry, it'll close the door on its own. Give it about 4 seconds and a delightful beep. And then open it up. And now the envelope will just come open easily as we get a cutscene at an awkward time. Speaking of awkward times, I think this is the first time that Edna and Fred have talked in 3 years, something like that. I think she says as much at the end as he comes in and says, I gotta shut down the power, but only for 5 or 6 minutes. That's real-time minutes. That's coming up in just a moment. Is that all you have to say to me? You've been in the basement for the past 5 years. They don't have the best marriage. Although, you know, everyone has different ways of keeping things fresh. I guess they just avoid each other altogether as much as possible. But soon things will be different, he assures her. But Edna's heard that before. Anyway, we open up the envelope. We find ourselves a quarter. Again, in the other versions, you need to microwave that envelope first with that water to make it open without tearing it. In the NES version, doesn't matter how you do it, but you'll find a quarter in there, which we can use in the game room, actually, for playing any of the games. That's how we would get that new combination high score with the Meteor mess game, had we done it later on. But we're going to go ahead and use the stamps on the envelope while it's still kind of moist from that microwave, and now they will stick. Put that manuscript right there in the envelope. Take it outside of the mailbox, open that box up, use the envelope with the mailbox, and very importantly, make sure you use the flag to put it up. And now it'll take a few in-game moments while we wait for the letter to be received by the marketeer, guy who will publish anything, whatever his company was called. In the meantime, we don't have too much to do. We can go check out the game room just because we haven't been there yet. But yes, while we wait, let me just point out, if you are playing the game with Syd or Razor. And you can try to play the game right now, but it's not going to work until we fix the power, so. And if you have the small key, you can use that on the coin box for these so that you can get your quarter back, actually, if you accidentally put it in the wrong machine, because we do need to get that Meteor Mess high score. Again, if you haven't already opened the door to the secret lab like we've already done. So the power's going to go off in just a moment. So we're going to take Bernard and head up to that attic. It's the, well, one of the attics. It's that door that we use the paint remover on. We're going to open that up. And once that power goes out, we're going to use the tools to kind of repair the wiring. Got to make sure that we have the flashlight and the batteries, the ones that are from the radio. We open up the radio and put the batteries from that into the flashlight. We turn that on, and then we can fix those wires in that top right room with Bernard, but only when the power is off. Don't try to do it while the power's on. Get a nasty shock. Like how perceptive Ed is. No one touches my hamster. It's been gone for a good 20 minutes, Ed. Anyway, so we covered how to get past the purple tentacle with Michael, develop that film for Ed, make a friend out of him, he'll show up, and allow you to get past him. If you're Razor or Syd, you're going to want to go to that music room where we turned on that TV, put in the cassette tape that we find in that library, in that loose panel, put that into the stereo system in that music room and turn it on so it's recording. Play the piano to get your recording of the piano, and then take that tape up to the green tentacle, and he's like, oh, you're a fellow musician. And he says, you know, I have aspirations of being a famous musician one day. He gives you his demo tape. You then go ahead and address the envelope once again and put the demo tape in that envelope. It's the same exact process as we use to mail away the manuscript. The only difference is we put the demo tape in there instead of the manuscript and then mail it off, and they'll send you back a recording contract which you can give to the green tentacle, and then they'll befriend you and come to your aid and help you get past that purple tentacle so you can beat the game. So now we're just waiting for the power to be cut as Bernard. We're going up to that top right room, once again that attic with the wiring. I don't think we've actually been in there yet, but I'm going to cut through here where we use that paint remover as I mentioned. Let's open this door. Hard to tell if the power is off until you have that light on, actually, because the power will cut the light, obviously. So now just make sure you have those batteries in the flashlight and have it ready to turn on. And then once the power goes out, we can turn on the flashlight and then use the tools on that kind of exposed wiring over there. I should mention that none of this is necessary if you have already opened the door to the secret lab using the 0000 combination. This just is purely if taken too long and you need to use that game machine. In that case, then yes, you need to fix the wiring, and that's all that affects. But poor Dave. So we're just waiting. The dungeon is not the best place to find out if the power has been cut, by the way, because there's some sort of backup generator going on in the dungeon where the lights are always on, so just something to keep in mind. But there you go. So now turn on that flashlight and use the tools on those wires right there. Enjoy some nice sound effects. That should do it. And now we can turn off that flashlight or leave it on. There's no purpose for it for the rest of the game. So now we're really just waiting for Marketeer to get our manuscript that we sent to him. And speak of the devil, there you go. Manuscript, let's see. Wow, this is hot stuff. Wait, what did we send him? It will sell millions, maybe even billions. I'm gonna make Mr. Meteor $1 million offer. Does his ghostwriter get anything? His ghost punch-up writer? That'd be nice. Alright, so it's gonna be a few more moments before we will get the contract via the mail. There will be no doorbell ringing this time for what it's worth, but just know that, yeah, be on the lookout for that. Just hang out basically in the front foyer area right inside the house if you want. And just wait for that contract to show up, and we'll show you how to beat the game with that in a moment. But while we got some downtime, there are ways you can die here in Maniac Mansion. It is a thing. We haven't triggered any of them yet for obvious reasons. We want to beat this game, but we've been teasing this. I've been looking forward to this all class. Let's bring him in now. Our resident items expert, Blaze, today in a repurposed role, counting down his top 5 deaths here in Maniac Mansion.
It's Blaze's best year in Item Sky. So while we got some time to kill, pun intended, here are my top 5 ways to die in Maniac Mansion. Note that this list exclusively applies to the NES version, so no death by tentacle assault after making the mistake of getting it all horned up by playing a recorded tape of tentacle mating calls like in the original version, which unsurprisingly has 0 consequences or reaction in the NES version. Starting off at number 5, it's the most classic of simply nuking the house. There are a number of ways to nuke the house, from draining the reactor's cooling pool / the house's recreational pool for too long, pressing an unfortunately existing and placed insta-nuke button in the pool itself, leaving the breaker off for too long, which you can do if you hang around the breaker and get caught by the tentacle, effectively derailing it from its much more important task of flipping the switch back on, or allowing the self-destruct timer at the end of the game to completely count down. Doing any of these will cause a meltdown explosion which will instantly kill everyone within a 5-mile radius. What a way to go. At number 4, we have drowning in the pool. The Professor and Fluff referenced this one in our original class on Maniac Mansion, pointing out the irony of none of the kids being able to swim, including Jeff, the self-professed surfer dude.
Here's a fun fact and a timely one at that. None of the kids in Maniac Mansion can swim, so get everybody out of the pool before you refill it.
Except for Jeff.
No, Professor, I'm telling you, none of the kids can swim.
That can't be. Hold on, let me try something. I'll show you. Got Jeff in the pool. Switch to Syd to refill it here.
You're about to kill a teenager.
No, because Jeff, he fixes phones and he can Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But his one-line bio said he lives on the beach.
Yeah, on the beach, not in the water.
He answers to the name Surfer Dude.
Until you killed him.
Come on, that name at least implies some degree of aquatic competency.
I can imagine all the other kids talking one day, being like, by the way, has anyone actually ever seen Jeff on a surfboard?
I guess it's more of a lifestyle for him.
Well, it was until you drowned him.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to the game and never talk about this again. Maybe later you can tell us about the Maniac Mansion TV show.
Love to. But maybe don't kill any more kids before then, Professor.
Shut up, Fluff.
Not a great look for us surfer dudes. Sure, the water's a little radioactive, but to instantly drown. At number 3, we're going to stay on said radioactive pool water for a moment. This water has a plot-furthering purpose in helping the plant upstairs grow to act as a makeshift ladder to the mansion's observatory. Don't make the mistake of microwaving this water when you want those stamps to stick, though, as opening that microwave will flood the immediate area with deadly radioactive gas. Oof. Moving on, now we certainly don't condone and certainly condemn any forms of animal abuse here on Video Games 101, but we can definitely get behind Ed's reaction to your showing him the exploded hamster's remains at the number 2 top death here in Maniac Mansion. This one is character specific, as you can only achieve this death if you have Razor or Syd in the party, as they're the only two who are in desperate need of counseling enough to do the deed. They don't get into specifics as to how Ed does it, but like most of the other deaths here in Maniac Mansion, the next scene cuts to your tombstone outside of the house. It makes me laugh though, the idea that you did the most horrific thing imaginable in Ed's mind. He understandably murders you in a blind rage, but after all that he still decides you deserve a decent burial, even going to the length of commissioning a headstone for you. Finally, at number 1, my top death here in Maniac Mansion is giving your own recording contract to, and subsequently being murdered by, the Green Tentacle. Now this one also requires Razor or Syd in the party to record their demo and send it away to the publisher you see on TV. Rubbing your success in the, let's call it a face of the green tentacle, will make said tentacle green with envy, to the point of murdering you. Once again, no context on how the tentacle does it, but once again, the concept of the tentacle coming back to its senses after the murder and consulting with a stonemason and ultimately commissioning a headstone for you delights me to no end. But there you go, my top 5 deaths here in the NES version of Maniac Mansion.
In case you weren't sure that we needed to revisit this class, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Blaze. And incidentally, I completely agree with that list. So we got the contract back from the publisher for the Meteor. So we now have our in to the lab. Actually, we have multiple ins to the lab because we're going to start to get into the different endings here in Maniac Mansion just as soon as that power comes back on. Oh, perfect timing. I swear we didn't set it up that way. All right, so we're going to save our game now to show you all the various endings of this game. And let's go to our resident boss expert, Gary, for tips on dealing with the final boss, which will dictate the different endings here in Maniac Mansion. Take it away, Gary.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters.
Alright, the first way to win in Maniac Mansion involves calling the cops. Now you need Bernard in your party to do this one. He's the only one who can fix the radio and thus call the Meteor Police. But once it's fixed with that radio tube, read that wanted poster, put in the number, and call the Meteor Police. They'll pick up, say we'll be there in 5 minutes, just make sure the door to the lab is open. Professor's talked about how to do that in the dungeon. So just go to the dungeon, wait around a few minutes, he'll show up, warp in, knock that purple tentacle out of the way, and arrest and disappear with the Meteor. Your job's not quite done yet, though. You want to make sure you pick up that badge which the Meteor Police dropped on the floor of the dungeon, show that to the purple tentacle, and then go on in. At this point, all you gotta do is flip the switch that's controlling Dr. Fred's mind, and there you go. Happy ending number 1.
Thank you very much, Gary. Keep it under light speed. I like the look of that alien. Knows it got. So now let's switch to somebody in the dungeon. Doesn't matter who, it could be Dave if you want, if you feel sorry for him and his lack of a role here outside of pushing that brick. Important though that it was. Yeah, if you want him to look like a big man in front of his girlfriend, you can play as him and wait and then grab that badge with Dave, as Gary mentioned, and then go in there and get past the tentacle that way to show him the badge and flip the switch and you're all good to go. So while we're waiting, we could just jump ahead, but since we do have a little extra time here, Fluff mentioned this kind of in that alternate reality of the other class, giving us some facts about the TV show. We actually never did that in the original class. An oversight which has been corrected in this updated Maniac Mansion NES walkthrough. So Fluff, tell us the strange story behind the Maniac Mansion television show, if you don't mind.
I didn't get a chance to talk about this in our initial class on this game, but one of the odder facts about what's already an odd game in Maniac Mansion is the fact that it was spun into a television show which involved George Lucas. Lucasfilm animators of the time, Cliff Ruby and Alana Lasser, pitched the idea of spinning the LucasArts game of Maniac Mansion into a television show to George Lucas. Lucas saw the potential and reached out to Toronto-based Atlantis Films to produce it. Atlantis then in turn reached out to Second City television writer and performer and Canadian Eugene Levy, later known for his roles in Schitt's Creek, the American Pie series, and much more, to oversee the development on the series. While the idea initially pitched to Lucas was more of a sci-fi comedy in the vein of the Munsters or the Addams Family, Levy enlisted his Second City peers to help him overhaul the concept into more of a lighthearted and family-friendly series with surreal and oftentimes meta leanings, which ultimately had little to do with the plot of the game. While Dave and his friends are absent, the show is still focused on the Edisons, but besides Fred, the father of the family, played by Joe Flaherty, best known for his roles in Freaks and Geeks and the infamous Heckler in Happy Gilmore, none of the other characters retain their names from the game. While Meteor did power parts of his basement lab, Fred wasn't evil or mind-controlled in the show, instead being portrayed as an eccentric inventor and scientist concerned as much with his role as a husband and father as he was with his experiments. The sweet and quirky comedy was generally well-received and reviewed at the time and ran for 3 seasons and 66 episodes total before it was canceled in 1993.
Thank you, Fluff. Given his involvement, how did Eugene Levy not cast himself as Dr. Fred? I admit I've never seen the show, and not to take anything away from Flaherty's performance.
Jackass!
But that seems like that would have been the obvious choice, not to mention a slam dunk Eugene Levy in that role. But anyway, anyone in class ever see that show, by the way? And while we're still sitting around waiting for the Meteor Police, Galaxy's finest, right? What, with a response time of 5 minutes or something? Anyway, let's go to Fluff for one last Fluff fact about Maniac Mansion.
Adventure games of the 80s often relied on command lines, inputting text commands to interact with and play the game. Just like the Professor, Maniac Mansion's creator Ron Gilbert wasn't a fan of this style of gameplay. So instead, he created a unique game engine titled the Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion, or SCUMM for short. An engine which would be refined and reused time and time again to build subsequent Lucasfilm games, later renamed LucasArts, titles on, including Zack McCracken, Full Throttle, and titles in the Monkey Island and Indiana Jones series. LucasArts finally abandoned the SCUMM engine in 1998 when they switched to the Grim E engine, named after the game they created using it, their critically acclaimed 1998 adventure title Grim Fandango. The SCUMM engine still lives on via the open-source SCUMM VM software, which is a set of game engine recreations, or in other words, a handy program for getting classic games to run on modern-day systems so that they're not lost to time.
Good call, Fluff. Yeah, love the SCUMM engine, love the SCUMM VM for sometimes just throwing old games at it that you don't even expect it to work on, but it just comes together. Yeah, it's nice keeping those games, as Fluff mentioned, which would otherwise be lost to time. Some cases, but still waiting around. About to do an edit right here. I just thought 2 Fluff facts later that the Meteor Police could finally be bothered to show up, and there they are. Good lord. Yeah, it's no need for you to have to wait for that long. They're acting like you need to set up all these other things in the time it takes the Meteor Police to show up. For what it's worth, if you call him a couple times and you still don't have the door open, they won't take your calls anymore, essentially. Which is fair. Like, keep calling wolf or crying wolf. So he doesn't do anything about the tentacle, he just kind of walks around, tentacles the guy. Alright, fine. You'll notice the badge was already sitting there on the ground before he even warped in, or even walked to that side of the screen. So it's you, slimy purple meteor. Oh no, you found me. You're coming with me, Crater. Alright, whoa, we don't need to throw the slurs around there, MP. And he just kind of warps out with them. And as Gary said, our work is not quite done. We do need to grab that badge off the ground. We do need a stinking badge here at the end of this particular ending here in Maniac Mansion. So use the badge on the purple tentacle over here. Immediately starts shaking and quaking, and it's, well, whatever. Yep, folds faster than Superman on laundry day. Good lord. He's right in there. I'll even help you. I was with you. Get him, arrest him. You know I'm one of the good ones. I'll help you. Put a stop to his dastardly deeds. Where was this? 10 seconds ago. He's mad. I'll help you. I mean, I'm your friend, you can trust me. He'll help us in so much as just, getting out of the way and running out crying. I can imagine like Dave just seeing all these things happening with all these various endings, people coming and going through the dungeon there. So now, nothing left to do except to flip the switch, so we need to go ahead, open the locker, get the radiation suit, use the small card on the slot, and then just flip the switch right here. Game over. And we turned it off before Fred could even initiate the self-destruct. mechanism, even though I think he's going to reference it just the same right here. He's like, but wait, this is so much more anticlimactic when the Meteor Police have already blasted off with the Meteor. I'll try to turn it off. I did it! Yeah, in the other routes that you take to take down the Meteor, it is not that simple, so let's go back to Gary, as we see right here. I'm sorry my insane plan caused you so much trouble. We get to enjoy Dr. Fred, Sandy, and Dave on the front porch. How can I ever repay you? Cash would be nice. And then the ultimate insult, the ultimate takedown, in front of Sandy of all people, unfortunately. So that ending was specific to Bernard, as we needed him, as Gary mentioned, to use the radio to fix it and make that call to the Meteor Police. So let's look at some solutions where any of the kids can take down the Meteor. Gary?
Boss beater. Right, the next way to win in Maniac Mansion is to deal with the Meteor yourself. You have a couple options here. First things first, you gotta get past the purple tentacle using whatever skills the kids in your party have, which the professor has talked about. Once you're past the purple tentacle, just run in, charge in, wearing that suit to the Meteor's little area, pick him up after you flip that switch, and then at this point, you have a couple options. One, you can put him in the trunk of the Edsel, use that yellow key to pop open the trunk if you haven't already done so, and then use that yellow key to launch it into space and give that Meteor a ride it will never forget. The other option involves launching the car without the Meteor in the trunk. This knocks down basically the entire area, so you can go back through the house, go upstairs to the top floor where we have that plant which we gave the radioactive water to earlier. Just give the Meteor to that plant, it'll swallow it right up, and yeah, there you go. Meteor taken care of. One of two ways right there.
Thank you, Gary. And then the final way, which is specific just to Wendy. Let's go back to Gary.
Boss beater. Alright, this last way to beat Maniac Mansion is for all of you who believe in second chances. This one requires Wendy in your party, and thus is one of the more difficult ones to get, but once you find that memoir of the Meteor and you punch it back up, you can send it off to the publishing address as the professor's shown. They send you back that lucrative publishing contract. Show this to the purple tentacle to get by it, and then show this to the Meteor itself. He'll say, Dr. Fred, let the prisoners go. I don't have to be evil anymore, and you're treated to a very nice talk show appearance at the end of the game, where the Meteor even credits you for helping him out. Note that there is one final secret ending, which is the most difficult in the entire game to get. This one requires both Bernard and Wendy, the two members we've had in our party, to do. To get this, you do what I just said to get the Meteor on the talk show, but before you do anything, before you give him the contract, you call the Meteor Police with Bernard. During the talk show segment, the Meteor Police will warp in, say, I don't care if you're reformed, you're still coming with me, and it leads to one of the most head-scratching endings and secret endings here in Maniac Mansion. But there you go, the last way to beat this game.
Thank you very much, Gary. Excellent overview right there. So we're enjoying just the normal, we gave the contract to the Meteor, and now it's enjoying the Jay Leno-esque talk show appearance right here. I think the chin is the giveaway right there. Probably in that first season, early 90s, when Jay was still relatively more on the darker hair side. And now let's do that special ending you can only get with Wendy and Bernard, calling the cops ahead of time and then giving him that lucrative publishing contract. And everything seems all well and good. Couldn't have done it alone. Wendy's getting her props, and then warping in as the Meteor Police on live television, well, presumably live. I don't care if you're reformed, you're still coming with me, just like Gary mentioned. Making for one heck of a spontaneous live television moment right there. I'm sure the Leno-esque character appreciates that. But there you go, the many different endings of Maniac Mansion. How to get the ending, or get to the ending with all the different kids. Everything's been covered. All the kids with talents, at least. Sorry, Jeff. But yeah, you can certainly fix that phone and tie up Edna when you're Jeff, if nothing else. But just don't try going swimming with Jeff. There's David Warhol. But there you go, the complete Maniac Mansion NES walkthrough, and honestly, most of this can be applied to any version of the game. For what it's worth, you'll just be treated to some more risque content in the game, as Fluff mentioned. But there you go, big thanks to all my TAs once again. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to enroll in Video Games 101. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. We'd love to have you enrolled. Click that like button too if you don't mind. Really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment. Who's your favorite character to take into the mansion, or characters, I should say. But that's our time for this week. We'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.